Polk County, then we got into the investigation because obviously the murder, it turned out, happened outside the city limits. So Chief, why don't you start from the very beginning and tell them how this all happened?
Sure. On the 9th of March, we received a call about a missing person. And in that particular case, it was an 81-year-old gentleman from Auburndale. So our officers initially made contact with his girlfriend, talked to her, and received some information about the last time she had seen him, where his truck was, because it was missing, according to one of the neighbors that we spoke to during our investigation. That night, we were able to do an interview, and through that interview, we were able to learn that the gentleman had actually been killed inside his truck. And we weren't sure exactly where that happened. We continued our investigation through the night and sent a detective and a lieutenant to Georgia. We had determined through our investigation that there was a family member of our suspect that lived up there, or that was staying there at the time. Went to Georgia, made contact with the Liberty County Sheriff's Office in Georgia, near Hinesville. Conducted the investigation there, had an officer go, before we went up there, go and see if that truck was anywhere in the area, and the victim's truck was actually backed into the driveway of a woman's house there. Confirmed the tag number, so we knew we were in the right spot. So officers then went up, talked to them. They wrote a couple of search warrants for the house for us and for the truck so that we could further our investigation there. Eventually it led to the arrest of a suspect in the case. We arrested him on an aggravated assault charge, and that charge was developed through our earlier investigation throughout the 2 days that we were conducting the investigation. So once we had that charge and we had a warrant for his arrest, then the local sheriff's office arrested him, and at that point the investigation moved forward. Talked to a couple of people there, found some evidence in the truck that there had been a dead body in the truck as well, and then throughout that interview determined for sure that the incident occurred in unincorporated Polk County. And at that point we contacted the sheriff's office, gave them the details, and then detectives from the sheriff's office came to Georgia as well.
You know, interestingly enough, this is a classic example of how law enforcement agencies work together and should work together, because it started out as a missing person in Auburndale, and as we found out during the investigation, this all occurred around the 3rd of March, but no one called the chief's guys until like the 9th of March. And Auburndale immediately got on this investigation, as you would expect that they would, and determined that this guy, David Jesse Williams, choked our victim with what turns out to be like a black dog leash, a cord, choked him to death. They didn't know that. They knew he was missing. They suspected a murder, didn't know where it was. The witness couldn't tell them anything. And the work that they did was phenomenal. So they could not locate exactly where the event occurred here, so they went to Georgia and they got the suspect, they got the vehicle. They actually saw the suspect trying to clean up the vehicle, clean the blood out of the vehicle up there. Our detectives went and he confessed once again to us. And here's what he told our detectives. He said, I owed $2,000 for drugs, and I either had to have $2,000 or kill the victim. Now, that seems like nonsense to us, because the person he killed, as far as our investigation goes, and Auburndale's, there was no tie between the 81-year-old victim and the drugs. It's just, that was his, to me, a rational excuse for what he did. So he fully confessed. He confirmed that all of the good work done by the Auburndale Police Department that they discovered was exactly accurate. And the best we can determine is that originally, our witness, our victim, and this Jesse Williams all got into this red truck and went up to the Polk City area. And best we can determine, it was Deanstill Road, north of Polk City, was sitting on the side of the road waiting for someone, ostensibly, to have some money. Well, our victim got frustrated after sitting on the side of the road, and I think he figured out, there's nothing to this. And he said, well, I'm leaving. And that's when our victim, who was sitting behind the suspect, reached around and choked him out. Our witness ran out of the vehicle, and after he choked out and killed the victim, our suspect put the victim in the back seat floorboard, covered up the victim, and then took off, found the witness, forced her back in the car, took him back into the city of Auburndale, and she was scared and waited, 6 days?
Yes. Yes.
To call the police department. We'd like to give you more details and more names, but we can't. They're either victims or witnesses to a murder, and it's a real convoluted story that took the police department a lot of work, did a fantastic job trying to straighten out all of the details. So by the time we got into it, they had done all the heavy lifting. And Georgia had, the sheriff's office in Liberty County had worked with the police department and subsequently with us. Basically, we were the people who took another formal statement and filed the criminal charges because it happened in the unincorporated area. But the chief and his team did a remarkable job sorting it all out before we even got into it.
Can you say again how you knew or why you thought he was in Georgia?
One of our crime analysts was doing a lot of background to just try to find any kind of information that could help us locate this truck, locate the suspect, and during that investigation and that background, she was able to find that a family member of the suspect's girlfriend lived in that area. So we called the locals up there and said, can you just go to this house and see if you see a truck in the area that matches this description with this tag number? And the police officer who was on night shift that night went out and looked and said, there's a truck there. I got to kind of see if I can get to where I can see the tag that's backed in. He did. He was able to see the tag from a different vantage point and confirmed that it was the truck that belonged to the victim.
How did you find the body?
During the investigation, the interview with the suspect in Georgia after he'd been arrested on a warrant for the aggravated assault case, during his confession, he said that he had buried the body and that he could take us to it. So we went with Liberty County, took him with us, and ended up in the next county, I think south of there, Long County, and he took us to a wooded area, up a trail, and was able to show us the spot where the body was at that point.
Up there.
Yes, sir, in Georgia.
It sounds like he, and you're the investigators, not me, but it sounded to me like he was saying to this older gentleman, either you give me the $2,000 or I gotta kill you. Could that, like he's trying to shake the guy down, no?
Well, I don't know in his mind. He had the victim take him to wait to meet somebody that supposedly had money. And so they waited and waited, and I don't know if he was working in his mind to figure out what to do next. And when the victim said, I'm tired of waiting, I don't know what's going on, but this is crazy, and he started to leave, that's when the killing occurred.
And this is paid off a drug debt.
Pay off the drug debt.
Supposedly, yes.
You know that low-level nonviolent crime that people remind us of all the time? Drugs aren't low-level or nonviolent. If you understand David Jesse Williams' statement, this murder occurred as a residual effect of purchase of drugs or fronting of drugs and unable to pay it off. Now, why he took it out on the victim, I can only surmise is maybe he wanted the victim to wait longer, but he made the statement during the confessions that I either have to kill you or get the $2,000. And the 81-year-old man had nothing to do with this as far as our investigation shows.
How did he know the 81-year-old man? I mean, what was that connection?
Well, we can't tell you that because that will, that will, because of Marcy's law.
But it wasn't random.
It was not random. No, absolutely not.
Can you tell us about the aggravated assault that he was wanted for that? Was that involving the victim?
So as we interviewed one of the people that was involved early on, we established that he had threatened her with a knife in Auburndale, within our jurisdiction, on the 3rd, late on the 3rd of August. I'm sorry, of March. And so late on the 3rd of March, this occurred. She told us about this, and at that point, we had probable cause to arrest him for the aggravated assault because obviously she was scared by what happened. She thought he was going to hurt her with the knife. So that her statements gave us enough to be able to make an arrest on that charge.
What do you think about somebody driving all the way to Georgia with a dead body in the back seat?
It's very odd. The investigators in the case said the truck smelled like a decomposing body, and and of course, as police officers, we're thinking that if he's speeding or does anything and gets stopped, that's going to be a hard one to explain. And occasionally you read stories about that happening. So, but it is very odd. I don't know if he just wasn't sure what to do until it came to him, maybe I need to bury this body, and when it came to him, he was in Georgia when it happened. I don't know.
Did his girlfriend drive from here up to the family member's house?
No.
She was already there.
Oh, she was already there.
Suspects.
Yes,
So-
suspect's girlfriend.
So 3 people go out to Dainsteel Road. It's the victim, the suspect, and a witness. The witness gets freaked out, eventually gets back in the car. So this
Forced back into the car.
forced back
Right.
in the car. This poor lady is now sitting in a car with a killer and a dead body in the back seat.
That's correct.
Did she say anything about going through that experience?
6 days later,
What'd she say?
when she called the police department and reported the 81-year-old missing.
Now, and she did say that she didn't know that there was a body in the back seat. She knew, she was sure that the murder had happened, but she didn't know because she ran down the street. According to her, she ran down the street screaming, and she said she was in the middle of nowhere, and there were no cars around, no people around. And after about 5 or 10 minutes of running is when he pulled up in the truck, forced her into the truck, and they left. So she said she didn't know, she had no idea that he was actually in the truck.
So when she reported
So
him missing,
I think her assumption, right, I think her assumption was that he had been dumped up there.
she knew she assumed he was dead when she reported him missing.
Yes.
She was clearly probably traumatized, but could she face charges for anything?
I think we've kind of hashed all that out, and we don't see any probable cause that would allow us to make an arrest for anything at this point. We think simply she was a witness to a crime and a victim as well.
And last thing, Sheriff, you mentioned it a little bit, but from what I read in the press release or something, detectives came upon him trying to clean the truck. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yes. So while our detectives were in Georgia working the case, we had the house and the truck under surveillance. If he had left the house, we were going to arrest him on our warrant for aggravated assault. And during that time, which was hours long, they saw him come out of the house. Deputies from Liberty County saw him come out of the house, put gloves on. He had a bottle of something that looked like a cleaning agent, and he started cleaning the car. And at that point, they moved in and arrested him. So
It was a horrible ending to 81-year life, I can tell you that.
yes.
And it's totally, totally, totally bizarre, the entire event. But the victim was just a good old man, and he was doing what the witness and Jesse wanted, and he got killed for it.
What kind of drugs are involved here? Do we know?
I don't, did he say what kind?
He did not. He didn't, so.
I didn't see it, just said he owed $2,000 on a drug debt.
This may be in the press release, and I'm sorry. Did he have a criminal record? Mr. Williams.
He has a couple of, but nothing, no felonies.
Violent.
Nothing significant.
Yeah, right, nothing that would lead you to believe this was coming.
Anything